Hey everyone, in today's grammar lesson, we are going to be looking at run-on sentences. We're going to identify what a run-on sentence is, and we're going to identify how to fix one. So run-on sentences are when you have two or more sentences combined and they do not have correct punctuation. It's okay to combine two or more sentences, but you have to use that correct punctuation. And so what we need to first identify is we need to understand these things called clauses. And so a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, and it should have a relationship. And it's crucial that they have this relationship because the clause is what's going to show or convey what the subject is doing. Okay? And so looking here, our first type of clause is this thing called an independent clause. Now, independent clause is a clause that can stand on its own. Think of the word independent. If you're independent from your parents, you no longer need your parents. So an independent clause, a clause that can stand on its own, and it expresses a complete thought. So think of it as essentially a complete sentence. That's what an independent clause is. And so what we'll do sometimes is, without even realizing it, we'll join two independent clauses together and we won't have the correct punctuation. And so you want to always make sure you're looking for that subject and verb, and you want to make sure that when you find that subject and verb, ask yourself, would this make sense by itself? So here, Alexis spends hours practicing. That would not make sense by itself, right? I mean, it could make sense by itself, but you kind of want to add this extra part here, this short dances she finds online. This whole thing works together. Now, technically, you could break it up, but it's not running on anywhere. There's not a need for any punctuation because it's all together. Now, what we'll look at is three different ways in which we can fix them if they don't work together. So here, you can add a period and make them separate sentences. And honestly, this is the easiest way. So here you have Alexis spends hours practicing short dances. She finds online she only records herself when she thinks they are perfect. And so here, right, we already have the independent clause that we already saw. Alexis spends hours practicing short dances she finds online, right? That's our first independent clause. And if you want to pause for a second, what is your next independent clause? And I'm hopeful that you all found she only records herself when she thinks they are perfect. So here you have your two independent clauses. So you don't want to have these joined together without punctuation. You need to have punctuation here. And so the easiest way, again, put a period in between the independent clauses. There's our period. And then you would obviously make sure to capitalize the first letter in your sentence. Capitalize, there she is, she, right? So again, this is the simplest way. So what you would do here is, if we went back, you have your two independent clauses, and you just need to make sure that you see that, right? Alexis is doing one thing. She is spending hours practicing short dances she finds online. Then Alexis over here, the she, the pronoun right here, only records herself when she thinks they are perfect. These people it's the same person, but she's doing two separate actions. Therefore, we have a subject and a verb, subject and a predicate here, subject and a verb, subject and a predicate here. Now, our second way that we can split these two things together is add a comma and a conjunction to join the independent clauses. And we've already talked about these conjunctions, but they're going to keep coming back until you have them memorized. So look for the independent clauses. We've already discovered the two in this sentence because it's the same two. And then put a comma and a relevant conjunction in between the independent clauses. And so those would be for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And so here, and. So Alexis spends hours practicing short dances she finds online, and she only records herself when she thinks they are perfect. If you do this, if you are joining two independent clauses by or with a conjunction, you must have a comma. No exceptions. There has to be a comma here. Sorry for my phone falling. You have to have a comma here. All right. And so what it means when it says a relevant conjunction, that means you wouldn't say Alexis spends hours practicing short dances she finds online, nor she only records herself, or she only records herself, or for she only records herself. You could probably get away with but, and you could probably get away with so. You just want to make sure that they fit. All right. That's what that means. Now, another thing that you could do here is, if you wanted to be real fancy and you didn't want to do the comma and you didn't want to do the conjunction, you could put a semicolon in here, but you have to make sure the two things are similar and related. So for right now, let's just focus on conjunctions, and maybe we'll look into semicolons a little bit later. Semicolons are my favorite punctuation. I just love them. They're so much fun. Our last way to do this is the hardest way. And this is when you add a subordinate conjunction, which we have not learned subordinate conjunctions, to change one of the independent clauses into a dependent clause. Now I'm going to show you this one. I don't expect you to do this one right off the bat, but some of you might be ready for it. And if you are, I want you to just go guns blazing and just go right into it. So here you have it one more time. All right, so then you look for the independent clauses, which should be easy at this point because we've already identified both of them in this sentence. And then you're going to add a subordinating conjunction at the beginning of one of the independent clauses. So here we have a subordinating conjunction, even though. So now, even though Alexis spends hours practicing short dances she finds online, comma, she only records herself when she thinks they are perfect. So if you add the subordinating conjunction at the beginning of the sentence, you will need a comma. And then if you do it at the end of in the middle of the sentence, you will not need the comma. But we're not going to get into all that. The point is if you can do this, right, any subordinating conjunction could fit here because Alexis spends hours practicing short dances, so on and so forth. So the problem with subordinating conjunctions is there's like 60 of them, and they're really hard to memorize. But if you want to use them, this is the way. So those are the 3 ways in which you can stop writing run-on sentences. And that's our goal with this lesson, is for us to stop writing run-on sentences. So we have 3 slides of practice, all right? So here you're just going to underline the independent clauses and then decide how to best fix the sentence. Now again, if you want to go gung-ho, guns blazing, and rock out some of attempt 3, I'm all for it, but I would just stick with either the periods or the comma and the conjunction, okay? Here's your second one, identify the rule needed, and then decide how to best fix the sentence. All right. And then the final rule one here is identify the comma rule needed and decide how to best fix the sentence. Okay. So those are our 3 ways in which we are going to try and fix these run-on sentences. I will be around. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me. All right. Bye, everyone.